After that, I'll invite questions or comments from members by jurisdiction, and then we'll have a call for the vote, also by jurisdiction. When your jurisdiction is called, please use the raised hand icon if you'd like to speak. Also, if you do want to speak, please state your name and jurisdiction just for the record. With that, Lynn, if you could please call the roll.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start by naming your jurisdiction or agency. If you could state your name. The beauty of all virtual meetings is we also have everybody recorded. So for those joining late, we'll capture them too. So we'll start with the District of Columbia, DC Council, Charles Allen. DC Council, Christina Henderson.
Here.
Gotcha. DC Council, Matt Fruman.
Here.
Gotcha. DC Department of Transportation. I see Amanda. DC Office of Planning.
Satina Khan here on behalf of Director Kozak.
Thank you. Moving on to Maryland, City of Bowie. I saw Maddie. Moving on, Maryland, Charles County.
Jason Groth here for Reuben Collins.
Thanks, Jason. College Park.
Denise Mitchell, Mayor Pro Tem here.
Great, thank you. Frederick County.
Mark Mischler here on behalf of County Executive Fitzwater.
Thank you. City of Frederick.
Kelly Russell here.
I saw Kelly. I can barely hear you, so note for future. City of Gaithersburg.
Neil Harris is here.
Thanks, Neil. City of Greenbelt.
Kristen Weaver is here.
Thanks, Kristen. City of Laurel. Montgomery County.
Marilyn Balcom is here.
Thanks, Ms. Balcom. Montgomery County Executive.
Haley Puckett here.
Thanks, Haley. Prince George's County.
Eric Olson, County Council.
Thank you. Prince George's County Executive. Vic or Olashay? I saw Vic. How about that? We'll make sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Okay,
Olashay is here.
Okay. For those, and I'm just, because this is occurring to me right now, when we do vote, for those of you who are in the room together, you're going to have to speak up separately, just so you know, because I know there's some sharing going on here, which is important. But anyway, so just as an aside, moving on, City of Rockville.
Nick Ashton present.
Great, thanks, Monique. Tacoma Park.
Shayna Fulcher, present.
Great, thanks. Maryland Department of Transportation. Anyone from MDOT?
Drew Morrison, present.
Great, thanks, Drew. Maryland House of Delegates.
Mark Foreman.
Great, thanks, Mark. Maryland Senate. Okay, moving on to Virginia. Again, we'll keep an eye out in the participant list. City of Alexandria.
Koenig, present.
Thanks, Koenig. Arlington County.
Takis Carantone is present.
All right, I can barely hear you, but I feel like I'll keep an eye out in the chat.
Takis Carantone is present.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Takis. Gotcha now. City of Fairfax.
Tom Ross, present.
Thanks, Tom. Fairfax County.
James Walkinshaw here. And Walter Alcorn too.
Great, gotcha both. City of Falls Church.
Snyder here.
All right, I did not hear Mr. Snyder, but
Can you hear me now?
barely, but it's yes, I see you. So gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
Loudoun County.
Mike Turner's here. I don't think Matt is.
Okay, got Mike, and we'll keep an eye out in case. Did I just interrupt someone?
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Rob Donaldson is president.
Oh, Rob Donaldson, right. Okay, so we have both from Loudoun. Great, thank you. City of Manassas. City of Manassas Park.
Jeanette Rischel here.
Thanks, Jeanette. Prince William County.
Chandra Jefferson.
And
Okay.
Rick Kenneth is here for Supervisor Angry.
Okay, great. So I got Rick and I got Deshandra. Perfect. Virginia Department of Transportation.
Phil Cutler here for VDOT. I'm joined by the Chief of Policy, Angel Dean, and also Commissioner Bridge wanted to be here, but is only able to listen in today. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Virginia House of Delegates.
Delegate David Reed, present.
Great, thank you. Virginia Senate.
Senator Jennifer Boysko, present.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to WMATA. Okay, I thought I saw Allison. Oh, I see your name, Allison. So, gotcha. Our ex officio members, Federal Highway Administration. So just so everybody knows, we have a new Federal Highway Administration District Administrator named Lamin Williams. So he's planning to join us. I guess he may just not be here yet. Federal Transit Administration.
Hey, David Chilling, FTA.
Great, thanks, David. National Capital Planning Commission.
Hi, Mike Weil. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Mike. Cool. Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. And National Park Service.
Hi, good afternoon. Laurel Hammock here.
Great, thanks, Laurel. All right, that concludes roll call. We have a quorum.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm seeing a number of comments from folks in the chat. So in terms of difficulty hearing folks, I suggest try to turn up your volume on your device, but also lean in when you're speaking. And hopefully that can help resolve it. Okay, so we're now going to go on to public comments. A copy of the comments received online have been made available to all of us. It's also on the meeting webpage. Lynn, would you mind summarizing the comments we've received?
Great, thank you, Chair Henderson. So there were over 1,200 pages of comments in your meeting packet. So between noon on Tuesday, May 14th and noon on Tuesday, June 18th, the TPB received 10 letters, including one resubmitted letter from October, 5 comments submitted directly via email, 9 additional comments were received through our TPB comment form on our website. And lastly, the TPB received 885 emails generated from email writing software. So before I move on, I just want to thank our staffer, Laura Backel, for, oh my gosh, putting this all together. So anyway, these email campaigns included hundreds of comments urging both the TPB board to reject the currently proposed I-495 Express Lane project and hundreds of comments urging the TPB to include the proposed project. I'll get into that later, but please keep in mind that these comments are directly from the monthly rolling comment opportunities. Staff did not do outreach, and we will only be able to provide the comments directly as due to the volume, our monthly courtesy complete summary and analysis is just not possible at this time. So a memo, as well as each of the comments can be found on our meeting page. I'll briefly summarize the 10 or 2 letters that were not part of the email campaigns now. The Coalition for Smarter Growth urges TPB officials to exclude the 495 Southside project from the Visualized 2050 Plan and Air Quality Conformity Analysis. They state there are unaddressed issues concerns including a flawed study and alternatives evaluation, a potential traffic bottleneck in Prince George's County, induced traffic effects, future Metro Rail concerns, climate pollution, health impacts, and flaws in the VDOT study. The coalition also included their comment letter from back in October with further details. The Citizens Against Beltway Expansion write that allowing the South Side lanes to move forward would break a promise that rail would one day extend over the Wilson Bridge. They urge the TPB to remove the South Side Express lanes from Visualized 2050. Mr. Brian Ditzler urges the TPB to remove the Southside Express lanes from Visualized 2050 because they are inconsistent with greenhouse gas reduction goals. They would block a future extension of Metro's blue line over the bridge. They would not resolve congestion but shift it to Oxon Hill. And they would result in increased traffic volumes, undermining efforts to create more walkable local streets. Writing on behalf of the Sierra Club chapters in the DMV, the Sierra Club urges the TPB to support the motion from Prince George's County to remove the I-495 Express Toll Lanes project from Visualized 2050 and the list of project submissions in the air quality conformity analysis. They state the following. It would move the region further from reaching the TPB's greenhouse gas goals and would make it more challenging for the region to achieve compliance with the Ozone National Ambient Air Quality Standards. The toll lanes would put the extension of Metro Rail on the Wilson Bridge at risk. It is a false solution for transit riders. The hundreds of millions of dollars would be better used if it were all spent on increasing access to more affordable public transit, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and transportation demand options. The project will shift bottlenecks and fail to fix congestion. They conclude urging the TPB to remove the project along with all the Beltway and toll lane expansions from the long-range plan. Shifting topics for a minute, Mr. George Aburn focused on the need for the TPB to review and take action on the recommendations by MWAC and ACPAC regarding environmental justice and the need for the TPB to better address air pollution related to environmental justice. He notes that ACPAC has made recommendations to CPC, MWAC, and the COG board on climate change and environmental justice, calling for more aggressive action. He urges the TPB to consider these recommendations. The South Lawn Citizens Association residents urge the TPB to remove the I-495 Southside Express toll lanes project from Visualize 2050, stating that it would expand the Beltway, move the bottleneck to Oxon Hill, and generate more traffic on local streets. They state the project is inconsistent with greenhouse gas emissions goals and would increase air, water, and noise pollution in their neighborhood. They note that WMATA is conducting a study to extend the Blue Line, and this project would impede those efforts. They ask the TPB to remove this project along with all other segments planned for the Beltway and I-270 and reevaluate the 900 miles of highway expansion in favor of better transit, transit-oriented development, and transportation demand management. The Maryland Transportation Builders and Materials Association urges the inclusion of the Southside Express Lanes project in TPB's Visualize 2050 air quality conformity analysis, highlighting its potential to enhance transit connections and create new revenue streams. The association emphasizes that this study is crucial for informed decision-making and maintaining eligibility for federal funding. The Maryland League of Women Voters believes that this project should be completely removed from the plan because converting infrastructure that was designed for rail to roads is backwards thinking considering the climate crisis. It would just move a bottleneck of traffic from the Virginia side of the bridge to the Maryland side of the bridge. By increasing I-495 lanes, it would also increase traffic on roads such as Telegraph Road, Van Dorn Street, Route 295, and Maryland Route 210. The Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance writes in favor of the inclusion of the Southside Express Lanes project, stating that the project presents an opportunity to alleviate congestion, improve access to jobs and opportunities, and invest in the region's transit system. They note concerns have been raised regarding the misuse of air quality conformity process to impede potential projects before a fair evaluation can take place. They state VDOT is obligated to demonstrate air quality conformity under the National Environmental Policy Act. They state that while the inclusion of the Southside Express Lanes on the list of projects doesn't approve the construction, it allows the completion of the NEPA process. VDOT states that the project will not move forward without support from Prince George's County and the region. They state that refusing to evaluate the air quality impacts of the project sets a dangerous precedent for future transportation projects and undermines regional collaboration. John Undelin urges the TPB to include the Southside Express Lanes project in Visualize 2050. He states the improvements offer a chance to fund transit and promote carpooling. He states that the increased transit funding is crucial due to the pandemic's impact, noting the decline in ridership and the need for revenue. He states that the project would provide continuity for the express lane system on I-495, offer additional travel choices, reduce congestion, enhance travel reliability, improve safety, and align with local and regional plans. The express lanes would contribute transit funding, provide more reliable bus service, and promote ride sharing. Mr. Mark Scheffler writes that Resolution R13-2024 should be denied for the following reasons. Maryland, Prince George's County's support for the project is uncertain. Prince George's County will bear most of the costs via high tolls and congestion. Implementing inexpensive interim solutions, such as painting auxiliary lanes and limiting access during high traffic, could resolve major congestion issues without additional project costs. Suburb to suburb express bus transit is unlikely to succeed due to ample parking and car infrastructure. Current routes have low ridership, indicating potential challenges for similar new routes. Mr. Adam Paul writes to oppose reserving medium space on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge for auto travel. He states that the median was built to support rail and building auto lanes would prevent this. Approval signals more difficulty in establishing a metro line in the future. He urges the TPB to work with WMATA to accelerate the expansion of metro. Bill Pugh writes that they are disappointed that VDOT's 495 Southside study has failed to consider bus, HOV, and travel demand management and has ignored transit. They are concerned that future metro rail is not being protected. They state that a possible proposal by TPB members to model 2 scenarios with and without VDOT's 495 Southside widening with toll lanes would fail to model alternative solutions and simply reinforce the bias of VDOT's study to date. Any alternative conformity scenarios must model multiple build alternatives for I-495 Southside, including a bus and HOV lane with TDM measures, a metro rail, and expanded transit-oriented development scenario. Mr. Casey Clements writes in opposition to using the reserved median space on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge for auto travel. As the bridge median was originally built to support rail transit, he states replacing it with auto lanes would decimate WMATA's plan on creating the blue loop, limiting a huge number of DMV's residents, many of which do not use a car, to do crucial things like get to work, attend important appointments, etc. And it would limit their ability to get out and participate in all of the amazing events the DMV has to offer, which impacts the city financially. So that concludes the specific letter and email summary. We had 9 comments on our general comment box on the TPB website. All 9 of those commenters wrote in opposition to the I-495 Express Lanes project. And lastly, the TPB received 885 emails generated from email writing software, and these campaigns included content urging the TP board to reject the currently proposed I-495 Express Lane project and content urging the TPB to include the proposed project. So of the 885 emails, 593 email forms urged removal of the project, stating that the project would increase traffic, leading to more pollution and impede the efforts to extend the Blue Line. They advocate that instead of highway expansion, better public transit and transit-oriented development are more sustainable solutions that will reduce congestion and improve public health. They state that VDOT's proposal to widen I-495 is problematic because it would cause a bottleneck in Prince George's County, hinder future metro rail expansion, and increase traffic on surrounding streets. The TPB received of the 885, 292 of those emails from community members urged support of the I-495 Express Lane project, stating it would relieve congestion, improve traffic, and bring in money to fund transit. They state that transit systems are struggling, and this project would provide an opportunity for dedicated transit funds for Prince George's County. They urge the addition of the project into the air quality conformity analysis so that VDOT can continue to work on identifying and refining it, resulting in a more informed decision being made before construction. As I mentioned, all the comments are found on our meeting page. Thanks again to Laura for her patience. And that concludes my report, Chair Henderson. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any questions from the staff? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the approval of the May 15th minutes. You've been provided a copy with the minutes. I trust that members have had an opportunity to review them. So I move that we adopt the minutes for the May 15th, 2024 meeting as provided. Could I have a second of my motion?
Second, Walkinshaw.
Thank you, James. Are there any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes? DC? Any changes or corrections for Maryland? Virginia? Other agencies? All right, so we'll move to the vote. Are there any nays or abstentions from the District of Columbia? From Maryland? From Virginia? Other agencies? All right, the minutes are adopted. Moving on to the next item, which is the technical committee report. We have a written summary of the June 7th, 2024 meeting. I will ask Amy Garbarini, the chair, of the technical committee if she would summarize the meeting's outcomes for us. Amy?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for my voice, just in advance. The technical committee met Friday, June 7th, where there was a recap on Visualize 2050 in the non-regionally significant project submissions due June 28th, along with an update on the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project. There were 6 additional presentations for information and discussion only, including an update on the TPB resources and applications or TRAP website development, a briefing on the 2023 Washington-Baltimore Regional Air Passenger Survey completed in October of 2023, a briefing on the highway asset and systems performance measures and targets related to PVPP, a briefing on the 2023 State of Public Transportation Report, followed by updates on the VRE System Plan 2050 and the Alexandria Transit Strategic Plan. So that concludes the presentations from the June 7th meeting. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Are there any questions from DC? Any questions from Maryland? Virginia? Other agencies? All right, thanks, Amy. We'll move on now to the Community Advisory Committee report. We have the written summary of their June 13th meeting. I'll ask the chair, Ra Amin, to report the highlights.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Wonderful. I can't see myself, so I didn't know whether I could hear myself. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Henderson and TPB members. The Community Advisory Committee met last Thursday. The meeting featured a presentation and discussion on the Regional Bus Stop Design Forum and the State of Public Transportation Report. There was a debrief among members on the Community Leadership Institute and a discussion about the first DMV Moves Task Force meeting on level setting and vision. Members provided feedback on bus stop designs and what might be the next steps for taking the prototypes forward. Members also commented on each of the designs regarding safety and accessibility, and the critical need to involve community members early. Regarding the State of Public Transportation Report, members discussed how transit needs get surfaced, noting the TPB doesn't come up with a plan, but relies on jurisdictional input. Once again, members stressed the need for local community involvement. CAC members shared reflections on the Community Leadership Institute, including how valuable it is.
We're gonna head out from the beauty salon.
And noting it's worthwhile for anyone involved in public service. I shared an update on DMV Moves. We conducted the same exercise as the task force, using 2 words to describe world-class transit. The results were similar to those voiced by the task force members. I invite the TPB members to read the CAC report for more details about our discussions. In light of your heavy agenda today, this concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ra. Does anyone have any questions from the district? Any questions from Maryland? Any questions from Virginia? Other agencies? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mean.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. The next report will be from our director, Conti. We have Conti's written report, but Conti, can you please advise us on the report? This is for steering committee actions as well as the report of the director.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. You have a copy of my written report, and in the interest of time, I will not review all of it, except to note that the steering committee approved 3 amendments at the request of VDOT, MDOT, and District Department of Transportation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on those amendments. There are a couple of announcements, and I would particularly like to draw the members' attention to one announcement, and that is the kickoff meeting of the joint COG and WMATA's DMV Moves initiative took place on June 10th, when the task force that is overseeing this initiative met. More information on this initiative is on page 61 of my report. Just a quick recap, the DMV Moves is a regional initiative that is examining the current setup of the various public transportation systems in our region and working to define how to improve the current setup of this public transportation system through better coordinated planning, regional funding, and a coordinated governance that would lead it to be recognized as a world-class transit system. A number of the TPB members are on the task force that is overseeing this effort, including Chair Henderson and Vice Chair Walkinshaw. The task force will be assisted by 2 advisory groups, and the Government Partners Advisory Group and the Community Partners Advisory Group. On the Government Partners Advisory Group are representatives of all the local bus systems, representatives of VRE and MARC and a few other regional and sub-regional transit agencies. And on the Community Partners Advisory Group are representatives of various community partner organizations, chambers of commerce, trade unions, and the TPB's Community Advisory Committee is also on this group and is represented there by Chair Ramin. We plan to provide the TPB with a report on this initiative as more work gets underway. Thank you kindly, and that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kanti. Are there any questions for Kanti from the district? Any questions from Kanti from Maryland? Virginia? Other agencies? Okay, all right, thank you, Kanti. Excuse me. Now on the agenda is the chairman's remarks, and we are running ahead of schedule a little bit. I don't have substantive remarks for today, as I recognize the next item on our agenda is a big one. I know our members have been actively engaged in discussions and reviewing the information we have available to us as we consider taking action on it. And I trust that we will reach a workable understanding in order for us to act at today's meeting. So I'll move on now to the action items. So the first, Visualize 2025. This will be the first of 2 action items today. It is also very important action that is the one project from all of the projects that the TPB members had proposed to be included in our air quality conformity analysis for our long-range transportation plan, Visualize 2050, that the TPB has yet to take action on. We acted on all of the other projects. We did have quite a bit of discussion about this project at our May meeting, and I understand that those discussions, particularly between a few of our member agencies, have continued. Here we are today to consider this project proposed by Virginia DOT and consider whether or not it should be included with the other projects in the air quality analysis for Visualize 2050. It is important that we act on this project today, one way or the other, so that the staff can continue with their work over the next 10 months and bring the results to us so that we can adopt the next long-range plan for the region, Visualize 2050, at some point next year. Before we begin the discussion, I want to ask our director, Kanti, to recap where we are with this project, with the staff's ability to work on the air quality conformity analysis, in essence, what is expected for us under this item. So Kanti, if you give some context here.
Okay.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So a quick recap. The region currently has a long-range transportation plan as is required by the federal law. And this long-range transportation plan is called Visualize 2045. And this plan is good till early 2026. And I say good because there's a federal requirement that the plan be reviewed and updated as needed once every 4 years. So the TPB had noted when it adopted Visualize 2045 that it believes that the performance outcomes from Visualize 2045 can actually be better, and it can better advance our region's goals. And that is what is anticipated from Visualize 2045. So as such, the TPB said that we will redo Visualize 2045 and adopt a new long-range plan, and which is called Visualize 2050. Essentially, it's a plan for the next 25 years in our region. And there are two steps in adopting a long-range transportation plan. Certainly for the TPB, since we are a non-attainment area of federal air quality standards. The first step is to conduct a regional air quality conformity analysis. Essentially, this analysis estimates what is the impact of all of the projects, programs, and policies together with the forecast increase in population and employment, and with some land use assumptions. What is the combined impact of all of these things on certain pollutants in the air in the future? That is essentially what the air quality conformity analysis is. Essentially testing if we implemented all of these projects, and if the population and employment grew as they are forecast, and if the land use changes happen as we assume, will the air quality meet the standards that have been approved by the EPA for our region? Currently, as we work towards developing Visualize 2050, our new long-range plan, we are in this first step, meaning the TPB is now beginning to undertake this regional air quality conformity analysis. And the TPB is to approve what projects should be included in the analysis, what are our population and employment forecasts that we should be using, and what are the land use assumptions that staff should use. And it will take about 9 months for staff to do this analysis. As Chair Henderson just noted, last month, the board approved all of the projects that had been submitted except one. It approved the forecast of population and employment for future. It approved the land use assumptions that we would make and a couple of other technical inputs such as the air quality model. So staff has, on the basis of TPB's action last month, staff has begun the work so that we can bring you the results early part of next year. Today, we are gathered here to find out if TPB staff should include an additional project in the analysis, and that is the project proposed by the Virginia Department of Transportation that's titled I-495 Southside Express Lanes Project. That is the matter on this agenda item today. At the last meeting, VDOT had received some questions, some concerns had been identified from Prince George's County, WMATA, and a bunch of other TPB member agencies. VDOT provided some responses during the meeting, and that discussion has continued after the meeting. So what is in the meeting read-ahead packet that you all have is a base resolution that documents in greater detail where we are today, how we got here, and ending with the resolution that essentially says that the TPB agrees to include this project in the regional air quality conformity analysis. That is a resolution to start the discussion. That is not to indicate that that is exactly what the outcome will be. But that is for this board and its discussions during this item to decide what the final advice for staff is going to be by means of the action that they take on this resolution. Now, attached to that basic resolution are some supporting documents developed since the discussions last month. There is a fact sheet from about the federal record of decision that had been issued when the Woodrow Wilson Bridge project had been approved. There is a staff memo from Christina Finch that includes a list of questions that WMATA had submitted to VDOT on the 495 Southside Express Lanes project. It also includes VDOT's response to those WMATA questions. There is also a letter from VDOT's commissioner to the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer of Prince George's County, responding to some of the questions and the issues that the county had identified. Finally, also included are two letters, one from the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority representing the Virginia jurisdictions that are on the TPB about the Transportation Authority's collective position on the question of including the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project in air quality conformity analysis. And there's another letter with the same sentiments, similar sentiments from the chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County. So that is what is in the packet. And to conclude, the expectation for this item today is that the board will continue the discussions that it began last month and hopefully conclude those discussions and decide on the best course of action regarding the question of should the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project be included in the regional air quality analysis. I will note that today's action is not on adopting Visualize 2050. Today's action is not on including the project in Visualize 2050. It is an action that would say whether this project should be included in the air quality conformity analysis. The adopting of Visualize 2050 with or without this project, that is an action that as of now is scheduled for June of 2025. That's a quick overview, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to turn it back to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kanti, for that. So I will get us started. I move that we adopt resolution TPB R13-2024 as has been provided by the staff and included in the read ahead packet. I will accept a second to the motion.
Second?
Second.
Oh, wait, someone just needs to be a bit more clear. Who was the second?
I think Bill Cutler from VDOT had the second there.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Okay, the staff is going to display the resolve part of the resolution on the screen so folks can see that, but you can also obviously check your packets and I'll give you more information. Now that the resolution has been properly moved and seconded, given that this is a Virginia project and VDOT has VDOT had been asked a few questions last time, I will start the discussion portion with Virginia and then go to Maryland and the district and other agencies. Please use the raised hand icon on the WebEx so that staff and I will know that you wish to be recognized. For the discussions, VDOT, if you could please review the questions you had been asked and please briefly note your responses and then we'll go from there. Bill?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. And thank you to all of the TPB members for last month's discussion and vote, allowing for further discussion. We appreciate that very much. I also want to point out that we did take the zero-based budgeting seriously, as Kanti referenced earlier, and there are many projects not included in this current plan. And I want to, though, focus on this project. And I'm joined today by our Chief of Policy, Angel Dean. Angel?
Thanks, Bill. Madam Chair, members of the board, I want to just start again by thanking the region for your continued engagement, and especially over the last month as we've sought to gain consensus on the need to advance the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project to the next step, which, as you just heard, is the inclusion of it in the air quality conformity analysis. As we're all aware, this vote allows the project to develop and is not equivalent to a decision on the project's preferred alternative. VDOT looks forward to continuing advancement of this generational opportunity that seeks to utilize our existing shared asset to provide express lanes, which include bus transit in advance of a future rail extension. As such, it aligns with TPB's aspirational goals to expand the express lane network in the capital region. As part of connecting to the existing network of 94 miles of express lanes in Virginia, this multimodal project will benefit commuters and travelers throughout the region. Regarding our shared interest in transit investments, it's important to recognize that there are few transit benefits in this corridor today. The DRPT Transit TDM study that the Commonwealth advanced identified this, stating that due to the corridor's congested conditions, the only service across the bridge, the Metrobus NH2 service connecting Alexandria National Harbor, offers little to no travel time savings. We know that future conditions will only further compound this reality. The project is the only near-term plan that is seeking to reverse this and establish a transit network in this corridor. The express lanes in Virginia have evidenced that they drive carpools and increase the efficiency of bus service and thereby increase ridership. It is this ridership that can indeed pave the way for future rail service. As Commissioner Britch has stated in letters that have been shared with this group, and as we've reiterated in our discussions, VDOT is fully supportive of future rail transit across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and have fashioned our project accordingly. In light of this, and again, an appreciation for the collaboration we've had and will continue to have with our colleagues across the region, we propose a friendly amendment offered replace the action item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Deem, I heard you say that based on your discussions, you're willing to offer an amendment to the resolution. Would you wish to move that? And then I'll let the chair decide on the
Yes,
status of that.
Conti
Okay.
VDOT so moves.
Thank you. Chair, back to you.
Thank you. For the TPB staff, do you have the written version of VDOT's proposed amendment?
Yes, we do, and it's currently being displayed on the screen. Bill, either would you want to review that, or do you want staff to go over the proposed amendment to the resolution that was included in the packet?
Oh, Conti, I thank you for the opportunity. I see this as a collaboration between sister agencies. So if you could have your staff go ahead and present this. Thank you.
Thank you. So the base resolution that Chair Henderson moved and that was seconded, nothing on that, on the first 3 pages of that have changed. Towards the last page, and on the top of the page on the screen, there are 4 new whereas clauses that have been added. I'll try to go over them briefly. The first new whereas clause says that the TPB acknowledges that VDOT has been working with other member agencies, including Prince George's County and WMATA, to review and respond to questions about the potential benefits and impacts of VDOT's proposed Southside Express Lanes project. And then the second whereas recognizes that Prince George's County notes that the ongoing work with VDOT has been helpful, but believes that more time is needed to secure the results of the traffic impact analysis that VDOT is currently conducting as part of its NEPA activities for the Southside Express Lanes project, that would continue to address the questions and issues that have been raised to date related to the congestion at the terminus of the project and the cross-jurisdictional transit services and travel demand management programs in the corridor, both at present and in the future, that would help the region decide if the proposed Southside Express Lanes project is in the best serves the needs in the corridor. The third whereas clause notes that the TPB understands that the Southside Express Lanes project is an important part of VDOT's project development work, specifically the NEPA study, and the TPB wishes to allow having this work continue so that it can be included in the TPB's Regional Air Quality Conformity Analysis and the Visualized 2050 plan, while also providing time for TPB's other member agencies to get involved and secure a better understanding of the impacts of the proposed project on their jurisdiction's mobility and accessibility goals. And concluding with this whereas clause that says that the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Region Forward document and its stated climate change goals, and the previous Council of Governments and TPB analysis showing a disparity between the western and eastern portions of the region that has been articulated as the region divided, and that Visualize 2050 should take advantage of the opportunity to bridge the gap to create a true multimodal model that enables transit, bicycle, and pedestrian safety, as well as enabling transit-oriented development and land use changes to create a region that is balanced in a way that benefits all. So then those whereas clauses recognize where we have been, summarizes the key themes of the discussions in the past, and concluding the resolution by saying that now therefore be it resolved that the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board resolves the following. One, it amends the air quality conformity analysis scope of work it adopted as part of Resolution R12 2024 on May 15th by directing staff to conduct two alternative sets of regional air quality conformity analysis. One, without the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project, and one, including the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project, and the project as defined in attachment 3 of this resolution. Second, the TPB resolves and revises its schedule to adopt Visualize 2050 and FY 2026 through FY 2029 Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, to provide additional time for the analysis of the above two alternative scenarios, with the TPB taking action to approve the air quality conformity analysis and adopting Visualize 2050 and the FY 26, FY 2029 TIP at its December 2025 meeting, unless it can be done sooner. And finally, resolving that the TPB intends to approve only one of these two alternative regional air quality conformity analysis in December of 2025, either with the I-495 Southside Express Lanes project or without this project. That is a quick review of the proposed changes to the text of Resolution R13 2024. So Chair, I turn it back to you. A motion has been made to amend.
Yep.
And based on your and the person who seconded the earlier motion, we can determine what is the status of this request. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kanti. So for members, we currently have a amendment to the base resolution. We can ask for comment on this particular, well, I'm seeing folks with their hands raised, so I'm not going to accept it as friendly at this time. I'm going to allow for folks to be able to make their comments. I saw Eric Olson's hand first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it and appreciate the staff's work. So this amendment both continues to run the existing Visualize 2050 package of projects as approved by the board last month, which does not include the VDOT Southside project, and also will include a separate analysis with this project included. I do want to be clear about a few things. Nothing in this resolution should be taken to suggest that Prince George's County Council will ultimately be supportive of toll lanes across the Wilson Bridge into our county, or anything short of preserving the lanes for transit only. We agree to allow models to run that include scenarios with this project both in and out of Visualize 2050, but, and this is critical, we need a robust examination of all alternatives, including transit only. And frankly, the region needs to do an awful lot more to address the east-west regional divide. The imbalance of jobs, the need for more TOD, and greater investment in transit alternatives. This approach to run two scenarios is intended to allow for the ability to assess the most complete range of how best to serve the interests of the entire region, enabling the NEPA process to continue, answer the questions that in the views of many need more complete responses, and allow for a project that can best integrate transit, multimodalism, transportation demand management, and transit-oriented development, and frankly, to serve as a bridge to a region undivided. There's a long way to go, much more community engagement, and much more analysis to engage in. The VDOT comments period resulted in 330 comments, with no build topping the responses at 41%. In second was standalone transit at 36%, and third was a combination of transit and TDM at 33%. I believe we need to listen to our constituents and take these comments seriously. continued community outreach, and serious study and analysis of those alternatives supported by the public is the most important aspect and is essential. I also want to talk about regionalism. I value, and I know we all do, the collegiality and spirit of cooperation that is and should be the hallmark of this body. Regionalism, at its best, lifts all of us and implements solutions for greater equity and increased benefits to the whole. Regionalism cannot be a mechanism to allow one jurisdiction to push its problems, including traffic, onto another jurisdiction. It cannot be allowed to further the regional divide. And that, frankly, is my fear. This proposed project is 1/4 in Prince George's County. To my knowledge, nobody in Prince George's County ever signed off on the initiation of this project, nor was even asked. That, the process, and the substance of the proposal do trouble me. But Prince George's County is a regional partner. We seek the best for the region, but make no mistake that we will not support widening the divide or moving traffic back up to our communities. The surest way to mitigate traffic is through smart growth transportation and land use policies. We've been working hard in Prince George's County to implement land use policies that encourage redevelopment near transit while discouraging greater car-dependent sprawl development. We seek regional partnership in the pursuit of stronger, walkable, transit-rich transportation for Prince George's County and the region's future. My hope is that this action today can help focus the region's attention on the real and pressing need for rail on the Wilson Bridge as was envisioned. Perhaps this is the spark needed to make this a top regional priority. I would like to ask VDOT one question before we vote, and they have acknowledged this, but I would like to raise it here. I'd like VDOT to confirm on the record that Prince George's County and the state of Maryland will be partners in the NEPA process, and that will be included in identifying what needs to be studied and if there's any further scope of the study. A quarter of this project is in Prince George's County. And finally, then I want to thank MDOT, Montgomery County, our Maryland municipal partners, the smart growth communities, civic and environmental communities as well. And I appreciate the work of TPB staff, Conti and Lynn.
Thanks. VDOT, if you want to respond to Mr. Olson's question as briefly as you can.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll answer real succinctly that Prince George's County and Maryland are already partners in our NEPA process, and we see no reason for that to not continue. We certainly are committed, as we've stated, with Prince George's County and others to continued engagement in the coming months as our project develops. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Walkinshaw.
You're on mute, James.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody who's been working so hard over the last month to continue this challenging dialogue, and thank Councilmember Olson for his openness to having that dialogue and to continuing it, and for the professionalism with which he's handled this process. And I want to single out especially the TPB staff who have agreed to take on this additional work, which will be a little bit of additional work, but I think it's valuable. As folks heard me say last month, in Fairfax County, we think this is a project that has tremendous potential for the region. And we think it has tremendous potential to expand transit options for the region. And as VDOT referenced the DRPT study that Prince George's County and MDOT were partners in, identified the potential for 8,000 new bus trips across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge because of the managed lanes. Those are bus trips that are not and cannot happen today because of the gridlock on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. And I think it would be a missed opportunity for us as a region to not allow that analysis to continue and to deny that potential. I'll make one further point with respect to rail. And there's a number of us here who've been deeply involved for many years in the Silver Line, and Supervisor Alcorn, who represents the corridor, and Senator Boysko, who represent the corridor, know all this better than me. But one of the keys to the completion of phase 2 of the Silver Line, rail to Dulles, was the existence of managed toll lanes, the Dulles Toll Road. And those lanes did two things. One, it allowed us, Fairfax County and Metro, for many years to run express bus service and demonstrate that there was interest in transit. That demonstrated interest in transit, desire for transit, was critical in securing federal, state, and local support for phase 2 of the Silver Line. It was also a dedicated revenue source that in large part funded phase 2 of the Silver Line. So I have a little bit different take in terms of how we can potentially accomplish the Blue Line extension. I think that failing to include this project in Visualize 2050 would damage the opportunity to complete that Blue Line extension into the future. This project has the potential to demonstrate transit interest and ridership over and across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, furthering economic development in Prince George's County and in Virginia. And it also has the potential, and no one's in a position to put dollar figures on this or to commit to this because it's not the point in the process where that can happen, but it has the potential to deliver dedicated revenue to fund the Blue Line extension. And nobody in our region has put forward anything approaching a funding plan for that Blue Line extension. And with the Silver Line, it was critical. So I would just urge everyone to keep that in mind. Keep it in mind. The NEPA submissions are binding. The lanes would have to be converted to rail when we're ready to build rail. We will never be ready to build rail over the Woodrow Wilson Bridge unless we have a funding plan. And this has the potential, and I have a lot of questions and concerns, and we'll scrutinize every step of the process as to whether it can meet that potential. But this project has the potential to do that. And as a region, it would be a mistake for us to turn our back on that potential. So thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate really all the work that everyone has done. I know it's been additional time and effort from Prince George's County, from MDOT, from VDOT, from TPB staff, but I think it's time well spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walkinshaw. Next on the list I have is Oluwise Ungabangle.
Oluseyi Olubenle, Deputy Director in DPWT in Prince George's County. I just wanted to start by thanking, a lot of thanking going on, thanking Councilmember Olson for your partnership and support on this process. Prince George's County supports the amended resolution to run 2 conformity tests, one with the VDOT project as proposed and the other conformity test without the project. We also want to express our sincere appreciation to Conti and the TPB staff, Lynn as well, for assisting in this process, and other VDOT staff for hearing our concerns and agreeing to this amendment. Want to also thank our regional partners, including MDOT, for your accessibility, input, and support. There have been a number of conversations, emails, calls, even over the holiday weekend yesterday. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate your support. We acknowledge and recognize the changes and challenges that VDOT has presented, and do appreciate their effort, but want to make it clear, however, that to move our region forward in a manner that is actually true, to a region undivided, it is paramount to get this process right. And in doing so, we know that it is imperative to not get ahead of ourselves, but to allow this process to be, and the time to fully explore the concerns of the region. More detailed answers to our questions are needed, as well as the specifics to what WMATA's questions, as well as other partners. Also want to be clear that this is not a Virginia and Prince George's County project. This is a regional project. And if we all recall, as Chair Henderson noted last month.
Are you still there? All right. We will give it just a second to see if she comes back, and if not, we'll move on to someone else while we work on the internet issues. All right. We will come back, but for right now, we'll go on to Allison Davis.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so thank you, Chair Henderson and TPB colleagues and staff, especially Conti and Lynn, and the staff who are actually going to do the extra work for this. Really appreciate it. So again, the region finds ourselves yet again debating the merits of highway expansion without a clear path forward for long-term transit. The public comments we've heard earlier, as well as many of those in the VDOT study that Councilmember Olson noted, clearly indicate a desire for building.
Outstanding questions that were raised by Prince County and our partners with WMATA. It is important to further flesh out these questions that have arisen to date. Prince George's County encourages advancing in a fashion that allows for unanswered questions regarding this project and its process to be as comprehensive and thorough as possible.
Okay. Director, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but you cut out. And so we haven't, I don't know if she can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Can someone nod if you can hear me? Okay, y'all can hear me.
I can, yes.
Okay. So we'll try to work on the audio issues on that side because I don't think she can hear me. Director, can you hear me now? Okay, I don't think she can still hear me. All right, so Ms. Davis, why don't you finish and then we'll circle back.
All right, perfect. So, right, so the region finds ourselves again debating the merits of highway expansion without a clear path forward for long-term transit. The comments we heard earlier, summarized in the staff report, and what Councilmember Olson noted in the project clearly indicate that desire for building transit in the corridor. The 2000 record of decision for the bridge documented that need to preserve right-of-way. And since then, rail in this corridor has been in several plans to date, but it's always unfunded. So the proposal to include the South Side Express Lane study and the air quality conformity analysis includes 2 express lanes in each direction, creating an interim use. If history is an indicator, interim uses often become permanent uses. Metro feels strongly that advancing an option that includes those 2 express lanes in each direction does not meet the original intent of the record of decision and does not preserve rail right-of-way on the bridge. Instead, building 2 express lanes in each direction will make it that much harder for the region to advance transit in the corridor in the future. The questions that we submitted on the 31st to VDOT focus on those realities of actually how that construction would happen, how it would be paid for. And while we appreciate that VDOT has stated that the conversion will not result in cost to Metro, we believe there are still costs that will accrue to the region and to one or more of our funding partners, increasing the cost overall. We believe there are just too many unanswered questions as to how the proposal to convert to rail at some point in the future would work in reality. And we appreciate discussions with VDOT as well as MDOT and many other partners to engage and figuring out how this would actually come to fruition. So thank you for all of you who continue to push for a significant transit solution in this corridor and pushing forward on a sustainable coordinated region.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. All right, Ms. Alabang, can you hear me now?
Yes, I don't know what happened.
Okay.
So it dropped at some point?
Yes, it dropped in the middle, and then you couldn't hear me. So we went on to Ms. Davis, but that last portion of your remarks, we could not hear you.
Okay, I'll just say the last, and if I get cut off, I'll just add my comments to the record for the meeting notes. Was making is just that Prince George's County strongly encourages support of this resolution to advance to 2 scenarios so that a final decision in fall can be made with much more complete information, dialogue, deliberation, and with the clear choice, not just for the 2 jurisdictions, but for the entire region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you heard.
Yes.
Did you?
Yes,
Okay.
heard you on that. And
right,
if you want to
thanks,
submit your complete statement for the record, we can make sure, send that to Lynn and we'll make sure that that's part of the packet.
Great, thanks.
Okay, David Snyder.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks very much. First of all, thanks to everyone's really hard work on this project. I had, first of all, a question. Since Metro and Metro Rail is not specifically mentioned in the two alternatives being studied, can I have a commitment from the sponsors of this amended language that part of this project will be specific inclusion of WMATA and specific discussion and consideration of Metro Rail in the corridor? I think it's implied. I just wanted to confirm that that was the case. And then I do have one additional comment and suggestion.
Mr. Snyder, do you want to make an amendment, or is a verbal commitment in terms of the intent okay for you?
Intent would be fine in this case. And so I would ask the key players, I think it's Prince George's County and VDOT, as to the specific inclusion of WMATA and consideration of the questions that WMATA has about rail in the corridor and on the bridge.
Okay. Mr. Cutler?
Thank you.
Sure. So we'll respond to that. WMATA certainly has been and will continue to be a member of our study team. And as we've stated and has been written in multiple places, the project does not preclude the extension of rail. VDOT, not being a project sponsor for Metro, will not be studying an alternative that is just the Blue Line extension. Instead, we are looking to our partners to provide us feedback that would allow us to incorporate considerations of that, such as what space is needed for that inclusion of rail in the future, et cetera. All things that we've been talking about with WMATA.
So am I hearing you correctly? Pardon me, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that I've got this straight, that the amended language includes consideration of two options. One, inclusion of the South Side work, and the other not. And I'm assuming that inclusion would include specific consideration of the questions that Metro has asked about rail in that area. I
Madam
think
Chair,
it
Mr.
does,
Snyder.
but I just wanted it on the record.
Yes. So we've met with WMATA and answered those questions and provided them in writing. Certainly we can further refine those answers. Some of their questions were very specific to final design considerations, which of course we do not have at this juncture. But we certainly commit to continuing that dialogue with WMATA as our alternatives seek to not preclude their extension of rail in the future.
Okay, we're getting to the point that I think that I asked, and I hear that commitment. Do I hear it as well from Prince George's County? I think that
Mr. Olson, Councilmember Olson.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yes, and in fact, the transportation alternatives, I mean, the scenarios will include, a variety of scenarios, including transit. I believe I read it in my statement. Transit only and other scenarios, and we certainly would like TDM to be looked at as well. So we need to look at the full range of things, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, including heavy rail and metro. That's my understanding.
Okay. 100%.
Thank
yes.
you very, thanks very much, Madam Chair. You've been very patient. Now, I do have one other comment. On page 3 of the original proposed resolution, the last whereas clause, whereas VDOT further notes in its letter attachment 2 regarding transit investments that should the project proceed to procurement through a concessionaire agreement, it intends to continue the practice of the Commonwealth to incorporate ongoing transit payments from express lane projects in Northern Virginia to enhance multimodal options in the respective corridor. I would propose, I think it's a friendly amendment, and VDOT commits to doing so on this project. We've all heard the importance of this project moving forward for the ability of improving bus service. And all we're asking is just a firmer commitment, not just, well, this is what we intend to do, or that's what we've done in the past, but urging that that additional language be added. And I hope it seems consistent with the intent. certainly consistent with the comments that we've heard from particularly Fairfax County about the importance of it. And I would just like to make that more clear going forward. So I would ask that that be accepted as a friendly amendment.
All right, Bill, this originally came from
Madam-
VDOT.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we do not accept that, and I'll ask Angel to speak on that.
Yeah, we wouldn't accept that as a friendly amendment. We believe we've included here in this language, as well as letters that this body has received, that it is, as expressed, it is VDOT's intent to continue our longstanding practice of negotiating the ability to secure transit investments in these corridors with express lanes. We can't commit to this as the project has not proceeded to the selection of a preferred alternative. It has not proceeded to procurement, which would allow us to frame those negotiations. So we would not be comfortable with that language. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'll ask for a second.
All right, so it was not accepted as friendly. Mr. Snyder has asked for a second on this amendment.
I will provide a second, Mrs. Snyder. Takis County, Harlington County.
All right, so that motion has been seconded from Takis. We will move to a vote. Again, well, Lynn, you tell me what the easiest way. I think I was going to do abstentions on this. Is that still appropriate?
Yeah, I think at least for the first round, you can start with the nays or abstentions on a voice vote, and depending on how we see that, we can go for a roll call vote, Chair Henderson.
Okay, all right. Just to review for everyone, we are voting on an amendment offered by Mr. Snyder. It's on the screen. It is to add the phrase "and VDOT commits to do so in this project" to the relevant whereas. We probably should add like line numbers on these in the resolutions in the future.
Okay.
Okay, so again, this is for nays and abstentions. And so again, if you're in favor of this inclusion, you would not say anything. All right, everybody good? Okay, so are there any nays or abstentions from the District of Columbia?
We had a draft MOU.
I'm sorry, if everyone who has their hand raised could lower them, I will take a note because I feel like that's confusing. So I think Takis and Miss Ashton and someone else wanted to be recognized to speak, but I don't want to confuse the counting. All right. Okay, great. All right, so we're starting fresh. All right, so nays and abstentions from the district. Okay.
Sorry, DDOT abstaining.
DDOT is abstaining. All right, thank you, Amanda.
Oh, DCOP is also abstaining.
DCOP is abstaining. All right, are there any nays or abstentions from Maryland?
Abstain, Charles County.
Okay, we have an abstention from Jason Groth from Charles County. Anyone else?
Nay from Frederick County.
A nay for Mark Mishler from Frederick County.
Hey, Kelly Russell, City of Frederick.
And a nay from Kelly Russell from the City of Frederick. Okay. Any nays or abstentions from Virginia?
A nay from VDOT.
All right, Bill Cutler from VDOT, nay.
A nay from Loudon.
I'm sorry, who was that from Loudon? Was that Mike?
Yeah, nay from Loudon.
Okay. A nay from Loudoun County. Mike
Nay.
Turner.
A no from Manassas Park.
A no from Manassas Park. Mayor Rochelle.
No from Manassas City, Pam Sebeski.
No from Manassas City.
No from Prince William County, Supervisor Angry.
Okay. Hang on one second. Lynn, did you get that one from
From
Mr.
Canizales, yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. There was someone else?
That would be a nay from Delegate Reed. House of
Delegate Reed.
Delegates.
Thank you, Delegate Reed.
Nay from Rob Donaldson, Loudoun County.
A nay from Rob Donaldson from, did you say Loudoun? Sorry.
Loudoun, yes, sorry.
All right.
A nay from Fairfax City, Thomas Ross.
Okay, Thomas Ross, a nay from Fairfax City. Okay, are there any nays or abstentions from the other agencies? All right, hearing none, I'm gonna give Lynn a moment to tally.
We're doing, yeah. Go ahead.
So there's Ted knows and then 2 abstentions, and yeah, the yays have it, so the language stays.
Okay, so the amendment from Mr. Snyder is agreed to. Well, I'll go back to the speaker list that I had from before. I appreciate you all not raising or lowering your hands, but the next person was Takis from Arlington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually wanted to ask the same like Mr. Snyder asked. So basically, I was in search of where the proposed language was, establishing that that the WMATA options for this bridge and future transit options remain. And while I hear Mr. Walkinshaw, I absolutely agree, the Silver Line was constructed this way with these revenue from this, from the Dallas corridor being able to accommodate transit over decades. Basically, this is given how we are thinking about our metropolitan transportation system today and whether all these practices that were practical and up to date, whether these are really, they haven't been really performing very well. And we saw specifically on the Silver Line that, and we see that today, that the demand for that investment was there way before we could actually provide the infrastructure that satisfies the demand today. So we have to find ways to make sure that the vision stays intact and that our collective and regional efforts support this vision and support the implementation of this vision in a more nimble way. And this is why we are while we are seeing the intention of VDOT, while we understand some of the practicalities of that, and we see all this, we still believe that that the intention should be a regional solution that's acceptable for the entire region, that is workable with the region's economics and economic outlook, and that it also doesn't rely only on one kind of funding or or majoritarily to this kind of funding for being implemented. The Blue Line Loop is an extremely interesting proposal for dramatically improving the core region's transportation capacity and for dramatically shifting the model. So we should make sure that we don't close the options, but we keep them really intact. The only difference with the Silver Line is that in the case of the Silver Line, the Metro Line wouldn't, overlap with the highway. They are parallel to that, and they still are. Here, we have a problem. We have 4 lanes that I doubt that they can accommodate both modals at the same, with the same performance. So this is a tougher one than the Silver Line, and therefore I think that the way we are approaching that carefully and making sure that everybody is involved and invested, including WMATA, that we keep the options open. Thank you.
Thank you. The next on the speaker list was Drew Morrison from MDOT.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the opportunity. Just wanted to, since through I think the alignment on this resolution, we're really looking toward the NEPA study. I wanted to take the opportunity to speak to a few of the points from Maryland's perspective as it relates to the environmental assessment. As has been mentioned, MDOT is a cooperating agency partner in that study. We're an equal owner of the bridge facility with Virginia. And this environmental assessment, the NEPA process, will inform the ultimate decision regarding the project's inclusion in the plan. So I want to give some more color on our policy principles that inform how MDOT is looking at the project. So the first item is engagement. As a cooperating agency in the 495 Southside study, we look to continue to engage closely with VDOT on the alternatives analysis. As Councilmember Olson said, it will be critical that both MDOT and Prince George's can engage deeply with VDOT on the alternatives, the impacts, and the potential transit options that have been discussed today. And when it comes to transit, I want to reinforce that MDOT's position is that the future of this corridor is multimodal. We expect that any project that would be built would incorporate mutually agreeable transit improvements, supporting Marylanders' needs that are at minimum consistent with the transit options outlined in the I-495 Southside Transit and TDM study that's been mentioned today. A project would also need to advance the path for resources for expanded transit service in the future. And it'll be really important to understand better through the EA process what the scale and nature of this approach for supporting transit would be. We've talked a little bit today about rail, and MDOT supports a rail future for this corridor. We expect that one day there will be a rail line running on this bridge that will be a benefit to the entire region. And we do think that there is more work that still needs to be done to ensure that a rail line would not be precluded by the project. That includes confirming the physical space both on the bridge and the ability for rail infrastructure to connect to and from the bridge. That also includes any construction needs that would result from the phasing and financial terms that permit rail service. And that also includes a governance structure that makes sure that rail can be built when it needs to be built. Turning back to the NEPA front, it's important to recall we're in the middle of an alternatives process. The discussion here has been focused on 2 new toll lanes in each direction. The alternatives process has not been completed. There are multiple alternatives in the current environmental assessment, including the no action alternative. MDOT would expect that the EA process will engage deeply in a more robust discussion about the range of alternatives for the future of the corridor. And as part of that NEPA document, of course, environmental impacts are front and center as well. And Maryland will want to clearly understand the impacts of the project with sufficient detail for decision making. Those impacts include potential safety and climate impacts from the project, as well as traffic impacts to Maryland 210 and other corridors in the study area. So appreciate the opportunity, Madam Chair, to just speak to a few things that we see as the path forward in further consideration of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew. Next, I had Monique Ashton from Rockville.
Yes, thank you. Comments. I just had 3 quick things. One is I appreciate the addition of clear dedicated funding for Metro. So I also just curious as to the options include no build, a build, but was there a discussion of a scenario with a build for Metro in the study? That's my question. And the last Metro. I do agree with Mr. Morrison that the future will need to include Metro on that bridge is what it was designed for. But my comment is also with if the toll lanes move forward, the commitment that there would be funding for Metro, but also that since it is shared with Maryland, that Maryland would be getting part of that revenue.
Thank you, Ms. Ashton. I believe Ms. Ashton asked a question around whether or not there was a consideration of a third analysis. Is that correct, Ms. Ashton, in terms of?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. as well, given that those toll lanes will be coming into Maryland.
Okay, Bill?
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll just reiterate what was stated earlier. So VDOT, being this project's sponsor, will be looking at build alternatives within our ability to advance. So that would not include a build alternative for a metro only option. We would look to our partners at WMATA to pursue such a project. But certainly they, as I've stated, they'll continue to be a partner as we progress our study. I think the other question was regarding dedicated funding for Maryland. Again, the way Virginia approaches these negotiations, which is our intent here, we would look to form a group of entities, which would include Maryland jurisdictions as well as Virginia jurisdictions, who would look at ways to prioritize transit investments. There wouldn't be allocations per se. I hope I answered that question. Did I understand the question?
Thank you. All right. The next person I have on the list is Mark Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this is a question for VDOT. I know it's not today, I know it's not this vote, but what is the actual mechanism for Maryland to sort of consent to the project, and when will that happen? What will be completed at that point? Will it be a concession agreement? Obviously, you'll have a preferred alternative, but when does that happen? When do you need Maryland's consent to move forward?
So Bill?
Yep, someone from VDOT.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, Madam Chair. So Maryland is, of course, engaged, as has already been stated, as a cooperating agency. So that's a partnership as we develop the NEPA document. As the bridge is a shared asset, of course, there would need to be consensus on any improvement to the bridge between Virginia and Maryland. So that's another decision point in the future should the project advance. And also, as was stated earlier, there is the actual adoption, right, of the CLRP for 2050 and the inclusion of this project in it or not.
Sorry, I'm not sure that actually answers the question. If I could get an actual answer of when you need, I mean, at some point you obviously need consent, right? So what is that point? And what, other than the preferred alternative, what will be available at that time? When is that in the life of the project?
The preferred alternative, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand the question. When would we
At some
anticipate the
point,
preferred
I
alternative?
apologize. I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. At some point, when you want to put a shovel in the ground, Maryland will have to have consented to anything that happens on the bridge, and then obviously into Maryland at that point. So when does that happen?
Sure. If we're speaking of construction in Maryland and construction in the bridge, that would certainly happen, you know, post adoption of the CLRP, post VDOT's negotiations on a concession agreement should the project advance in that manner. So I can't tell you when. We don't have a schedule that directs a date certain where that agreement would need to be made, but we'll certainly have that as the project advances.
But so you imagine, based on what you said, there'd be a concession agreement that you would have negotiated already that Maryland would have the chance to review before providing its consent.
Will Maryland have the chance to review the concession agreement? Was that the question?
Yeah, prior to consenting to the project.
I think VDOT would look to partner with Maryland given the terms that would impact, construction in Maryland or improvements to the bridge. So we would certainly look to work with Maryland on those aspects of our agreement with a potential future concessionaire.
Now, I'm sure I have one more question that maybe Conti or other staff can answer, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, could someone just show me where in the sort of revised resolution, and I'm just having a little trouble knowing if we're doing a substitute resolution or if we're revising the base resolution. We talk about that everyone agrees the bridge will have Metro Rail in the future? Because that's what everyone said out loud, but I'm just sort of curious where in the resolution I find that. And part of it is I don't have, we're sort of relying on the document on screen, so, just hoping someone can bring that up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Corman. If I understand your question correctly, we'll bring up the revised or the amended resolution on screen. To be clear, I thought your question was, where in this resolution today, in the amended resolution, do we say that there will be WMATA transit across the Wilson Bridge at some point in the future? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I've heard everybody say out loud that they agree on. So I was just looking for the sort of the narrowest point of agreement.
Right. To the best of my knowledge, and we are reviewing all of the whereases, there is no current language in the resolution anywhere that explicitly says that sometime in the future, there will be metro rail across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. There is language in a few places that says that the project will not preclude future transit across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. If you're looking for metro rail, I do not believe it is there, but just don't hold me to it. We are reviewing the document as we speak.
Okay, I mean, I would just offer a friendly amendment that somewhere in the resolution we say it remains a goal of the region that metro rail someday be across the Wilson Bridge.
Okay. Mr. Corman, so you're offering, do you have a specific place where you want that, or you just want that somewhere in the document?
Yeah, I apologize, Madam Chair. I don't really have the resolution, so it's hard for me to identify the place. I'm relying on the screen.
Okay.
Madam Chair, in one of the whereases, Leo, the whereas where we added text from David Snyder's proposal, the whereas immediately before that, it says VDOT has provided a letter attachment 2 stating VDOT is fully supportive of future rail transit over the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and as such is continuing to pursue rail preservation by advancing alternatives that can be pursued. And it goes on. Delegate Corman, it appears to me that if you are looking to explicitly note that that rail transit would be metro, that might be the place to add that word, meaning that first sentence of that whereas would read, whereas VDOT has provided a letter, comma, attachment 2, comma, stating that VDOT is fully supportive of future metro rail transit. That might be a place to consider if you want to make a proposal to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm proposing as a friendly amendment, so I defer to VDOT. I actually think it's a regional commitment, not just a Virginia commitment, although I appreciate if they make the commitment.
Gotcha.
Part of the region.
Okay. So we have an amendment offered by Mr. Corman to add the word metro before rail transit in that second to last whereas on the screen. It is being proposed as a friendly amendment. I think I see a comment in the chat from Monique Ashton as this is a
regional commitment.
This is a regional commitment and should be written as such.
Gotcha. Yeah. Fully supportive of.
And there's some concurrence there. I think Conti, based on my reading of this particular whereas, because it is VDOT focused based on the letter that they provided, perhaps this is not the spot for it, but perhaps there should be a separate whereas that just speaks to the region's full commitment that there be metro rail transit over the Woodrow Wilson Bridge.
I agree. On the last whereas before the now therefore be it resolved, that entire whereas clause appears to speak to the region. It says, whereas the MWCOG region forward stated climate change goals and previous COG and TPB analysis showed a disparity between eastern portions. And it says that Visualize 2050 should take advantage of the opportunity to bridge the gap in land use changes to create a region that is balanced in a way. So that that appears to speak to the region as opposed to any one jurisdiction. And I'm wondering if that would be a place where we can add a phrase, bicycle and pedestrian safety, as well as enabling transit-oriented development, including metro rail across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. And land use changes to create a region that is balanced in a way that benefits all.
Okay.
So
I'm
Madam
gonna
Chair,
get folks.
I would move that as a friendly amendment.
Are you okay with that, Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'll give folks just a minute to read that that whereas statement. There's a motion on the floor to accept this as friendly, and so unless there are objections, I plan to do so. Time to speak now if you object. All right, I see a hand, Kristen Weaver.
Yeah, my only thought is that maybe that phrase makes more sense before the as well as enabling transit-oriented development, because the phrase before that, the true multimodal model that enables transit, bicycle, and pedestrian safety, including metro rail across the Woodrow Wilson Memorial Bridge, and then go on just moving it one phrase earlier might be a more logical location for it.
Actually agree with Ms. Weaver on that. Thank you for that suggestion. All right. As updated. Any objections? All right, I'll accept that as friendly. Thank you so much, Mr. Corman. Okay, I don't have any additional speakers on my list, so I'm going to assume that we have exhausted it unless someone is raising their hands in the next 15 seconds.
So we are back to the amended language to the resolution that has been further revised to include David Snyder's phrase and then the Mark Corman suggested language here. So we are back to the motion that you had made, Chair Henderson. You had withheld judgment on whether you would accept it as a friendly. Now might be the call to make whether you accept this revised text as a friendly, and if it is, then we can proceed from there. If not, we can take a vote on this revised language first and then go back to the base resolution.
Okay, so as Conti outlined, we have the amended resolution before us with the modifications that we have made. If there are not any objections, we will accept this change as friendly. Okay, so I'm going to accept the changes as friendly. And so we now need to vote on the completely amended resolution. So I'm going to go based on nays or abstentions, as we always do. I'm going to start with Virginia and then go to Maryland, DC, and the other agencies, if that's okay. So again, this is just for the nays and abstentions on the complete resolution as revised, which, as a reminder to folks, would move forward with 2 air quality conformity analysis, one that includes the South Side Express Lane project and one that does not, which this means that for TPB members for 2025, this is not going away. It will come back next year. Okay. All right. So starting with Virginia, any nays or abstentions? Okay. Maryland.
Jason Groth, Charles County, abstain with a quick explanation in that we were one of the 2 parties that submitted letters asking to have projects included in the plan. VDOT was one. Charles County and Prince George's County spoke up about the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project. The response that we received back was that the project wasn't ready because it wasn't through the NEPA process, and second, because there wasn't an identified funding source for construction. I would say this project has a slight advantage over SMRT in that there is toll funding that's proposed, but that isn't exactly a clear cut funding source. So we're going to abstain just because
Thanks, Jason.
I think that's the right thing to do in the circumstance that we've been shown.
Okay, thank you, Jason. All right, Charles County is abstaining. Anyone else? Nays or abstentions from Virginia? Sorry, Maryland. Okay, nays or abstentions from the District of Columbia? And nays or abstentions from the other agencies? All right, so the amended resolution has been agreed to. Thank you, everyone. We are going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which does also require action from us. Last month, staff shared with us and the public the draft of the region's first ever Transportation Resiliency Improvement Plan. Today, we will hear from Catherine Renone if there have been any comments or changes to the draft, and then we'll take a vote. Catherine?
Thank you, Chair. I'll start up front. There were no comments or changes to the draft, and today I was just going to provide a little bit of an overview of the final Transportation Resilience Improvement Plan because I had like negative time last month, so I'm going to use that time today. First, I just want to. Okay. So my main objective today is to really provide an overview of how the Transportation Resilience Improvement Plan, which we have the acronym of TRIP for, can improve regional resilience. I'm going to review the objectives of the plan once again and go over some of the major plan components, review the results of the vulnerability assessment, and finally talk about the resilience improvement projects that were submitted for inclusion in the plan. Then I will ask for a vote to approve the plan. To refresh everyone's memory, in 2022, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act established the PROTECT program, which stands for Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation. And this program established formula and discretionary grant programs with the purpose of planning for and strengthening surface transportation to be more resilient to natural hazards, including climate change, sea level rise, flooding, extreme weather events, and other natural disasters through both non-competitive and competitive grants. Now, one of the components of this program is the idea of a resilience improvement plan. Again, that acronym is RIP, so we added transportation to that for a more updated acronym of TRIP. This optional component of the PROTECT program comes with a benefit for agencies and localities implementing transportation projects to gain access to benefits of this program by reducing the local match for a project funded by a PROTECT grant by 7% if the project is prioritized in our TRIP, and a further 3% if that TRIP is adopted into the TPB's long-range transportation plan, meaning that a funded project that normally would have to kick in 20% of the total cost may only have to cover 10%. And lastly, if the project is included in the TRIP, it does not have to include a benefit cost assessment as part of their grant application to the PROTECT program. So lots of financial benefits. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the, I think I missed a slide there. Some of the goals, the objectives of the TRIP. While I talked about some of the financial benefits, there are other benefits and is not the only reason we embarked on this project. We wanted to build on the strong foundation of resilience work that COG and TPB has done in previous years. So this planning effort was a great way to start the Transportation Resilience Planning Program in earnest, to both put together a document that would provide benefits for our member agencies, but also provide foundational analysis and relationship building as a jumping off platform for this program. Another goal of this work is to contribute to our member organizations' understanding of and planning for climate change, risk, and resilience. Not all of our members are in the position to complete risk and vulnerability assessments for their assets or jurisdictions. So having one completed at a regional level provides one cohesive look at the risks our regional transportation systems face overall, but also can be an important resource for any variety of planning purposes at the individual agency or jurisdictional level. By completing this plan, we've gotten a regional picture of what areas, assets, and services are most at risk. And in response, we can begin identifying priorities for investment in resilient solutions at a regional scale. And lastly, as I discussed previously, this plan better positions member agencies and jurisdictions, not only for federal funding and match reductions under the PROTECT program, but a variety of other grant programs that exist for climate adaptation and resilience efforts. And this right here on the right is just a screenshot of the cover of the plan, which I think came out really nice. So we kicked off the project in April of 2023 in that blue box right there. And our consultant completed the risk-based vulnerability assessment by the end of the summer of 2023, which we did complete in 2 phases. The first phase was a system-level screening assessment and an asset-level GIS analysis. In October, we held the first National Capital Area Regional Transportation Resilience Forum, and the interactive mapping tool that was a big part of that forum was completed towards the end of the fall, which displayed the results of the vulnerability assessment and provided our members with a resource for project prioritization. And in the beginning of this year, we collected prioritized transportation resilience project submissions from members, and we drafted the plan, which is now currently awaiting final approval by both Federal Highway and you all. This graphic shows a bit of a summary of how we engaged and collaborated with stakeholders from across the region for this project. Regional collaboration was important to ensure that the trip didn't conflict with other state or local plans and to improve resilience where stakeholders actually most desire it. Over the course of this project, the working group has met 4 times, once per quarter, to provide input on the methodology for the risk and vulnerability assessment, provide feedback on resilience criteria for project inclusion, ground truth the results of the vulnerability assessment where applicable, and of course, provide feedback on the draft plan and input on next steps and priorities for future studies. In the middle of the project effort, we held a larger meeting that we dubbed the Regional Transportation Resilience Forum, where transportation planning, resilience professionals, environmental advocates, and others met to learn about the trip process and share their thoughts on methodologies and preliminary findings. I consider the strong stakeholder engagement we had during this process to be really helpful in the success of the final document. We're going to move right along to discuss some of the main components of the trip. I've been before the board and the technical committee before to talk about some of the components, but it's all finished, so we're going to talk about it all together. This graphic on this slide summarizes the main components, which are really the chapters of the entire plan. The first part of the plan revolves around the context for the plan itself. In the chapters titled TPB's Regional Approach to Resilience and Systemic Approach to Trip Development. These are 2 required elements of the plan, and they attempt to give the reader an overall sense of what climate and resilience planning is like in the National Capital Region, how involved COG and TPB have been in climate planning and resilience planning over the years, proving that we've built upon the work that we've already done to get to where we are with this plan today. And it also summarizes how this plan aligns with existing plans in the region, whether it be existing state, locality, or agency plans. The systemic approach chapter outlines TPB's approach to understanding transportation vulnerabilities across the region by specifying the scope of the plan, basically our geographic region, timeframe, defining the assets and hazards that we analyzed in the plan, and including reference to all the stakeholders that were engaged in a discussion on equity and environmental justice. And the middle portion of this graphic are the major trip elements, really the risk-based vulnerability assessment, which includes the interactive mapping tool that I presented here previously, the list of priority resilience projects we collected from member organizations over the course of several months, and finally, a section on how we can collaborate and coordinate across agencies and jurisdictions to actually create a resilient regional transportation system through implementation. The section that follows is not a required section, but it was something that came along as a result of several of our working group meetings. We kept coming up with ideas and ways that the vulnerability assessment could be more accurate, have better data, be more helpful, but that we just couldn't include in the scope of work for this project due to budget and time restrictions. So the future enhancements section includes a list of future work we can take on at TPB to continue to inform resilience planning and investments in the region. And then finally, like any good major plan, we have a bunch of appendices, and those are titled up there on the right. Now on to a couple of the TRIP elements and some results of the vulnerability assessment. The vulnerability assessment identified climate vulnerabilities of the region's transportation system, as well as identified priority areas for resilience investments. The resulting mapping tool was shared with member agencies as a way to inform the resilience project list that facilitates eligibility for PROTECT funding to get that local match reduction, should a project in our region be awarded funding through that PROTECT program. This matrix includes the climate hazards and transportation asset groups that were analyzed during the course of this work, and it outlines which asset hazard pairs received asset level, indicator-based vulnerability assessment, literature review only, or map layer only. And those boxes that are showing up in like the white out gray were not analyzed due to scope constraints, but they definitely can be in the future should we be able to expand the scope of this work. So that's why we left them out. For those pairs that did have available data, the asset received a risk score based on their exposure to a defined hazard and the criticality of the asset. The hazard exposure was weighted at 70% and criticality was weighted at 30%. The table shown here on this slide is a public transit and extreme heat example of how the scoring would be calculated based on the various data included. Since we analyze so many transportation assets against a large variety of climate hazards, there are a lot of results, and I invite you to check those out on the resilience mapping tool, but I do have a few top line notes that can help summarize the overall results from the analysis. First off, the greatest number of assets are highly vulnerable to coastal and riverine flooding, which means that they're included in the FEMA 100 or 500-year floodplain. And that was followed by extreme heat, and then followed by flooding due to sea level rise. Including EEAs in the criticality component of the risk score calculation was significant. EEAs contributed significantly to the overall vulnerability score for several asset categories, and all of the highly vulnerable assets were located within an EEA. There were several assets that scored as highly vulnerable to multiple hazards, and those are 50 miles of road segments, 20 miles of rail line, and 6 bus stops, which scored high for more than one hazard. And while this may seem obvious, the rates of vulnerability to each climate hazard varied by location. Underlying this analysis is potential use for decision makers to determine the vulnerabilities of super specific or hyper-local areas. And to continue with the asset level assessment results, this matrix here reports out the percentage of assets and the total number of assets analyzed that were assigned high, medium, or low risks. For example, rail lines have the greatest percentage of high vulnerability to any one hazard, which is 11% for coastal and riverine flooding. This is followed by roads and coastal and riverine flooding, which represents a meaningful amount of mileage at nearly 1,100 miles, or 5% of total road segments analyzed. Most assets that are vulnerable to sea level rise are also vulnerable to coastal and riverine flooding, which may increase their priority for resilience planning since they are vulnerable to multiple hazards. And extreme heat was recorded to be a high risk for almost 200 bus stops, or 3% of total bus stops analyzed. But there were far, far more having a medium vulnerability, 89% of bus stops, which is pretty much almost all of them. And lastly, on the vulnerability assessment portion of this trip, we do have the literature review. There are those asset hazard pairs that were not well suited to a GIS-based analysis, like I was just explaining before, but they were important to analyze, so they received a literature review, which includes a discussion of historical trends and future climatic conditions for each hazard and examples of impacts to transportation assets that have been experienced in our region. And we wanted to be sure to cover as many bases as possible in this vulnerability assessment because it was the main resource that we provided to our member agencies for them to prioritize resilience projects for submission to be included in the TRIP and potentially for future submission to a PROTECT grant. And next, I'm going to discuss those project submissions. As you may recall, towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we put out a call requesting member agencies and jurisdictions to submit any transportation resilience projects that they are thinking about pursuing funding for in the future to be included in the TRIP. We sent around an online form and received 34 projects from 8 jurisdictions and member agencies. 14 of those projects are resilience planning projects, and 20 of them are resilience improvement or implementation projects. The final project list is included in the TRIP with submitting agencies who provided a bunch of information like where the project is located, a short description of what the proposed project is, the climate hazard or hazards that are impacting the asset or service, and what resilience measures are being proposed, whether the project supports an EEA, and lots of other information that can be found in those appendices. And this is a breakdown of the types of assets proposed to be improved and the type of hazard addressed in this list of projects. There are 16 public transit infrastructure projects proposed, 12 roads and highways, 10 stormwater infrastructure, and 2 bridge projects. For hazards, 24 projects addressed coastal and riverine flooding, 11 for extreme heat, 8 for sea level rise, 1 for extreme wind, and 1 for extreme winter conditions. And I just wanted to include a couple of examples of projects that are included in this list so that everyone can get a little bit of an idea of what a resilience project might look like. The first one on this list is here in DC, and it is an engineering feasibility study to identify methods to improve the flood resilience of transportation infrastructure at Nanny Helen Burroughs Avenue Northeast underpass beneath 295. DDOT, with support of DOEE, had actually already submitted this project for a PROTECT discretionary grant last year, and we learned recently that this project has been funded. Since it's a planning grant, it will be funded at 100%, and DC received $1 million for this project. So that's really great news for our region. And this project is included in the TRIP because they submitted it to us before they received funding for it, but it's great for us to have it to understand what's going on regionally with regards to resilience. VRE also submitted a project titled VRE Stations Heat Vulnerability and Mitigation Strategies Analysis, which is another study, and that will attempt to identify the appropriate mitigation strategies to address the adverse effects of heat in 5 VRE station facilities. And for Maryland, Charles County submitted an implementation project aimed at addressing the approach and surrounding roadways to Cobb Island Bridge that experiences tidal flooding from sea level rise. These are just 3 examples of the 34 projects we have in the plan that are at the conceptual or planning stages and do not yet have identified funding, except for that one from DC that now has identified funding. I do plan to do an annual request for projects to include in the TRIP to allow for more opportunity, not only for us to get a fuller picture of the resilience work being thought through and planned for our region, but to provide the potential for that match reduction should a project be awarded a PROTECT discretionary grant. I will likely keep the same schedule as the first solicitation and request projects be submitted at the start of the new year. So look for that in early 2025. And this is my last slide. As I mentioned earlier, one of the components of the TRIP that we added was a section called Future Enhancements, and that was concepted as a way to address some of the challenges we ran into during the course of this project. Some things I'll be working on over the next few years are, but are certainly not limited to, additional flooding impact analysis, increased consideration of equity and potential impacts to critical services. Oh, to wrap up. Okay,
Yes,
yeah, I
please.
see it's 2 o'clock. Okay, just lots going on. Next year, you'll hear from me again soon. And that ends my prepared remarks. So I'm happy to take questions, and staff recommends approval of this plan.
Thank you. I know folks want to go. It's 2 o'clock and we try to end and begin on time. We're just going to really quickly, I propose that we adopt the Transportation Resiliency Improvement Plan that we have reviewed. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Are there any nays or abstentions from the district? Any nays or abstentions from Maryland? Any nays or abstentions from Virginia? Any nays or abstentions from the other agencies? Okay, hearing none, the plan is adopted. Thank you so much. With that, we'll adjourn today's meeting. I'll note that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.